Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. Tonight, we are discussing the subject of the hidden ones, the unseen, the ones that hide and shadow. And I'll be sharing an interview that took place between myself and Nik Hayes. Nik had an experience with an unseen thing in Oxfordshire around about 15 years ago now, and that incident has stayed with him very much so to this day. You'll hear as he tells you and explains his experience, you can hear the confusion in his voice. He, like myself and others, are just looking for answers as what we saw on the day of our experiences and why we saw them and what seeing them kind of means if you're a witness. Nik speaks about the primal fear, the fact that there is no thought process with this fear, it just comes from absolutely nowhere. Your senses go into overdrive, they're heightened. You can hear better, you can see better, and you can smell better. Your legs aren't better though, you can't get out of there quick. And as he said himself, he had a choice that day to turn and run for safety or to continue on the path. He said himself that he felt some hesitation when he first arrived at the area, but he pushed past that and he moved on in. And we've heard that before. Many of us have made that mistake. And as he's walking, he hears up on a dark embankment something that not only stays in tread with him, it makes it out in front of him. It stalked him through those bushes. And how he made it out of there alive, I'll never know. So listen to Nik's story as we chat. We had a conversation on the phone earlier today and he allowed me to share that with you guys. Now, Nik is not into tech. He is not a tech person at all. The only thing he has is a normal house phone. So I've done the absolute best that I can with that. But I think we've put a really good interview together for you guys. The area is very important as well, as there are a number of Dogman reports down there now that weren't available to us at the time when Nik very first had his experience. Don't get me wrong, back then he didn't even know about Dogmen, let alone think about them. But when you hear how this being behaved, the way it moved through that brush with certain ease, pinning that together with the reports in the area, it does kind of lean towards a creature that growled at Nik, that stalked him, kept up with him, and got in front of him. I think Nik was being hunted that night. Nik's a local man, and he knows the area well. And I started by asking him why he was in the area that day and what was his purpose for being on that walk through the Lye Valley.
My friend had a recording studio, and we were putting down some new ideas for a sort of a half electronic, sort of half guitar band that we put together. I was laying down some instrumental guitar bits and some computer sort of keyboard bits. And I was trying. I basically missed the bus. I got home from work late, and there's a bus every half an hour, and I missed the bus. And I think it was already about 7:15 time. So I was worried I wouldn't get down there if I waited for the next bus. So that's when I decided to walk through the Lye Valley, which was a journey I'd done loads of times. I mean, I'd lived there in a place called Wood Farm for quite a few years by that time, since about sort of 1990, and I was a regular walking through there. And I'd even gone down there at night with my wife at the time. And although it was a bit creepy, it wasn't too bad. But I just never thought I'd experience what I experienced that night. It really scared me.
If I remember correctly, there isn't any real lighting down there, is there?
No. And the thing was, I could see sort of Cowley area where I was going to, and I could see that the sun was still out, and the tall buildings were catching the light. So I thought, okay, you've got to get down this valley. It's about half an hour walk, and you get up onto the golf course, and then you can sort of see Cowley. So I thought, as long as I get onto the golf course, right up on the high ground again, it'd be quite light. But basically, at that time of the year, with it being autumn, the banks rose up either side, and it got very dark, and there's obviously no sunlight there. And it'd been a bit of a stormy day as well, so it's quite black in the sky.
I know this is a familiar area for you. You've walked it many times before. When did you realise something was different about that day?
Well, I was kind of taking quite a casual walk down there, and what happened was I kept hearing what sounded like somebody sort of walking to my left, perhaps about sort of 20 or 30 sort of yards to my left. And I didn't take any notice at first because I thought it was perhaps the acoustics of the valley. But then I kept hearing it, and I only heard it now and then. So what I did, I stopped to have a good listen, and I heard an extra couple of like crunches, and then it went completely silent. And I thought, oh wow, that's a bit weird, isn't it? And I didn't think too much of it, so I carried on walking. And it was getting quite dark at this time, and I sped up a little bit because I was a bit unnerved. And I started to stop again, and again I heard like an extra couple of footsteps. And I suddenly got like a real kind of my ears went really crystal clear hearing. I started getting a real fast heartbeat. I didn't feel right. I felt like I was being watched. So what I did, I started kind of half jogging, and I didn't hear anything. So what I did this big jump in the air to give me like half a second or a second in the air, so I could hear if there's any footsteps coming. And I heard a couple more footsteps, and I heard like a crunch, and then I heard a real low, deep, guttural sort of dog-like growl. And it just went straight through me. My hair stood on, the back of my neck, the hair stood up, and I just felt this massive feeling of fear, like I was in danger. It was like it might have been a monster. That's the first thing I thought was monster, because it was such a low sort of guttural growl, and it was almost like the intensity of a lion. You hear that real low sub sort of growl. And, part of my head was thinking, well, this is ridiculous, because, in between two housing estates, and there's obviously nothing down here that's going to harm me. We haven't got any bears in the country or any wolves. But then I heard like another sort of growling sound, and I heard like a couple more footsteps, and it was sort of in front of me on this parallel track. And but basically I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, I'm either going to have to do like a 100-yard dash and get up onto the golf course, which meant passing this track where this thing was on. And it sounded slightly in front of me. And the other option was to turn right and run up a hill and then go into some really out-of-the-way wasteland beyond the hospital. So I just turned around and ran back. I did like a massive dash for about half a mile, and I just ran and ran and ran. But it scared the life out of me. I basically managed to get on the bus. So I ran across the road, and the next bus came round, and I jumped straight onto the bus because they had a habit of coming round with the doors open. I jumped straight onto the bus, and all I managed to get out was Cowley, And he said, God, you look like you've seen a ghost, and I couldn't even talk. It was terrible, and I couldn't say anything. And the thing was, there is a part sort of like above where there's like it's almost like a basketball court or a sports court with really strong lights. And I could hear the crunching following me, and the lights were shining down, but I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see anything at all. And that made it even more weird because, perhaps I didn't really want to see what was following me, to be quite honest with you.
I've taken a lot of reports like yours, Nick, over the years of people who are walking in an area that they know really well, who suddenly overcome with the feeling that they are being watched, normally off to the side of them or behind. And in some cases, like yours, that creature, that being, begins to follow them and shadow them and keep up with them, even though you're on the easy walking path and they're having to go through brambles, bracken, down trees, dints in the soil, all manner of obstacles, and yet they keep up with you. And in some cases, make it out in front of you. And if that happens at dawn or dusk, that makes it even a scarier event because you can't see what's shadowing you, what's stalking you, what's hunting you out there.
Yeah, and it was very dark, which is, because I went back there with Ben Emily and Jones. He persuaded me to go back down there. And we had a look, and there's no way a human being could walk through that and keep up with somebody. There's no way, because there's loads of, like, pothole type things in the ground. There's old branches, and we haven't got the eyesight to be able to follow anybody, and keep in step with them. There's no way a human could do that. I had sort of night sight, it could see in the dark, and it was quite capable of keeping up with me. Yeah, and the thing was, after it happened, I had no reference point. I mean, I never heard of Dogman or anything like that. I mean, I didn't even have a computer back in those days. This was sort of like 1996, 97. Yeah. I didn't get a first computer till 2010, and I was not aware of any cases of this. I mean, I mentioned it to a few people, and in the end, I just kind of put it into the back of my mind and forgot about it. And, every now and then I'd think about it. I'd lay in bed and I'd go over it in my head, and, I'd still get the chills when I thought about what it was and, if I was in danger. like a primitive kind of really in danger sort of feeling I got, like I was being, I was threatened.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I've never found anything like it. I mean, when I was young, we used to do knock a door run and get chased by people, and you used to get that adrenaline rush and run off. But this was like, it went straight through my body. I've never been that scared in my life, to be quite honest with you. I was living on a estate at the time called Wood Farm, and basically Wood Farm's got a forest, and that forest basically, if you walk through it for 10 minutes, you then go up onto the slopes of Shotover Hill, and that goes into the Shotover Country Park. And that was quite a nice walk, but I never had anything kind of weird happening sort of there, and I just didn't understand, what could be there. And the thing is, I didn't see it as I was walking. I wasn't aware of anything in front of me or sort of waiting around. It just kind of started as I was walking through this certain bit. And it's like footsteps, and I couldn't hear them all the time. I had to really, really listen. And once the fear kicked in, I got this like adrenaline taste in my mouth. This started hissing, and they went really kind of super, ultra sensitive and beating. My heart was beating so fast that I thought, I thought the thing could hear my heart. It's very hard to describe, but I could hear it really loudly, my heart beating. I felt really, really scared, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, it was fight or flight, but, there's no way I was going to stand and fight because the intensity of the growl that I heard. I mean, it's almost like as if, I try and explain to people, imagine if you're walking down like a lane and someone says, oh, by the way, there's a lion on the loose down there, and you think, oh, yeah. And then all of a sudden you hear that lion growl, which is a lion growl. It's that fear that you feel at that second that you hear it, and you can identify that something big is down there and your life's in danger. It was a total adrenaline rush, and I felt like I was caught up in this kind of endless moment that I felt trapped in, and I didn't think there was a way out of it.
It must have been absolutely terrifying for you. I do have something very validating, though, that I wanted to bring up, and I haven't told you about yet. About 4 or 5 months ago, I was contacted by a gentleman who said that he was a police officer at the time in Cowley.
Oh, that's right. That's that Dave thing. Yeah, Dave Wilson, wasn't it? Or something?
Yes, and he said that he saw what he would describe as a werewolf or a dogman, as we know them now, type creature. And I found that really interesting because I thought, I wonder if it was the same thing that was following Nik that day.
Yeah, when I heard that story, I mean, it made my blood run cold because I thought, oh my God, this is a policeman. The guy's not making it up. I mean, he's obviously held on to that for a long time, and it bothered him that much. And I'm not sure whether he read about my story and decided to tell his story or how it all came about.
I think it was. I'd released your story. Obviously, you did an interview with me quite a long time ago now. And then I often mention you when I'm talking about that kind of situation, because I think I'd be more frightened by something I can't see than by something I can see, because you when you can see it, you know where it is. But for you, it could have been anywhere around you, just within seconds from you. That's absolutely terrifying.
Well, it was. I don't know whether it was cloaked or not, because I have seen sort of footage on telly where people have filmed things. It looks like sort of Dogman that's kind of cloaked and it's running. You can see bits of it. But, just hearing that story from that PC Dave Wilson, that scared me because it wasn't that far from where I had my experience, really. Probably under a mile, I reckon. I've been working it out on a map. Because I wasn't that far from Shotover, and I was sort of on the verge of Cowley. But that really hammered it home to me when I heard that story from him. I thought, oh my God, that really validates, what I thought I heard. Yeah,
I'm really glad that you trusted your gut that day and scarpered out of there.
I had to. It's the first time I've ever experienced anything that scary, and I just felt like I was in danger, and I've never had that feeling of being in danger before. I mean, the nearest I can think about it is when I used to go to the circus as a young lad. I grew up in a place called Rugby, and they used to have a circus every year. My dad took me to the circus, and one time one of the lions went a bit crazy. I was only about 7 or 8. One of the lions came towards where we were sitting, and it growled, and that scared the life out of me, but obviously it was under control. The guy managed to get it under control, but it was kind of like that. Formidable, powerful, growl, and I never forgot that.
No, it's still imprinted on you. I can hear it in your voice. It's one of those experiences that we can't explain away, isn't it?
No, there's no way I'd go down there by myself. I mean, Ben persuaded me to go down in the daytime, and we did, which wasn't so bad, because, he's quite a big guy as well, Ben, and I thought, well, okay, if anything happens, and there's 2 of us. But we went down there at night as well, and I really did want to go down, but I agreed to go down, and I was actually shaking. He was laughing about it a bit, and I said, it's really serious. I mean, I know he takes it serious, but unless you've had that experience, you haven't got that fear factor running through you.
No, even a twig snap for me. I mean, I think I'm quite brave at times, but I can be out and a twig snap, and everything takes me right back to that moment.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I think about it quite a lot now. I mean, the only reason I told the story is because I had some experiences during my Quest for Invisibles work where some kind of entity appeared in my room, and I tried to take a photograph, and my camera just completely packed up, and I felt real fear there. And I was trying to explain to Ben on one of his shows how much fear I felt, and I said to him, I haven't felt that scared since this thing that happened to me down Lye Valley. And he said, "What's that?" And then I told him about it, and he became interested, and I think that's when you heard of it.
Yeah.
And that's how, otherwise I wasn't really going to tell anyone about it.
That fascinates me. So, what happened in your room? Did that happen before this event in the Lye Valley?
Well, the thing happened, I didn't start Quest for Invisibles till 2010. This probably happened about 2012, 2013. So, and yet the event in Lye Valley was back in 1996. But I was just trying to explain how scared I was when this entity kind of appeared in my room. I was trying to explain I've never been that scared since the Lye Valley incident, which was almost like 20 years before or whatever it was. So,
I'm working a case at the moment in Wigan, near me in Lancashire. Right. And it's a guy that's been shadowed quite often in the woodland, and things have started to happen at home for him. He went out with his wife, and his daughter was left at home. He got a call from his daughter while he was away from the house, and she was telling him that something was slapping and banging on the side of the house. They didn't set off the security cameras, and when she looked out through the window, there was absolutely nothing there. And he's another one who thinks he's on his own out there dealing with this strange activity that none of us understand. And it's really important, I think, vitally important, to find other people who are going through similar things.
I've got to know a guy. His name is Alex Smith, and I've done a couple of posts of his. I put some, and his camera could film up to sort of a mile. And what he was doing, he was up on some high ground. He was filming it, and he filmed like what looked like a portal. And this creature, this humanoid Dogman type creature, seemed to appear and was walking around. And I put a picture on my. It's like a picture taken from the live footage. The live footage was very, very small, but he managed to, using his phone, increase the size of it. Yeah. And you can clearly see this Dogman type image. And, he's captured a lot of stuff that seems to be coming through portals of light into this reality. Yeah. So either these things are sort of, you normally think you wouldn't have just one. You think, you should have more, because obviously, they might be giving birth to children, spreading, or either they're being created somewhere else and put through portals, or coming from portals under their own steam into this reality, maybe to hunt and then go back, which is even more scary because, people disappear. If they could grab you and take you back into their reality, I mean, God, how scary is that? I mean,
exactly. I mean, I've worked a couple of cases recently. We've got the one in Moncton in Scotland, where the lady's been found dead in a field, and the police have called it that she was killed by foxes. And there are a number of cases around the base there, the aerospace there, of canine or dogman-like creatures.
Yeah, foxes wouldn't do that. I've got a fox that I've been looking after for a year that's came into my injured into my garden. I've been feeding for a year. It's the most beautiful thing. I mean, I've been around a lot of foxes, and they're not capable. I mean, they're capable of jumping on you and perhaps attacking you, but they don't do that.
December 2021, run barefoot into the fields in the opposite direction of the lights, Nick, and she was found the next day. And they said at the hospital that they'd got a private, I can't think of it. Is it coroner? A private coroner.
Yeah, coroner.
Yeah, the car wasn't even registered in her name. They'd never released her name, and it was no suspicious circumstances.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, I've read a few cases on yours, where I think somebody was, a homeless guy was dragged out of a tent and found somewhere, I think, and also another one, I think, where police saw something eating roadkill. And, I don't know many people have had experiences like this, and that's why I didn't mention it for years. I just put it to the back of my mind, but it's always there in my mind, and I wouldn't dare go down Lye Valley by myself in case it comes back. So, I tend to think these things might be supernatural creatures, and they know when you're thinking of them. You know, and that scares me, the thought of being down there by myself and then seeing this thing and thinking, for God's sake, you know, I should never have gone down there again. But at the same time, I'm very, very interested in these things. I mean, I came across that story about that guy, I think it was Dave Cheshire or something, that farmer. Some of the stuff he described, the absolute fear when he locked eyes with this thing through binoculars. I mean, I can really relate to that fear and, you know, the heart pumping and the pure sort of evil feeling. I didn't see it, and, you know, thank God I didn't see it, because I don't know what I would have done.
Look, I've heard that so many times. Thank God I didn't see it. You know, because it's just it's that fight. How do you fight an invisible foe?
Yeah, well, even seeing it coming, and seeing it coming into this reality. I mean, it must have been really bad for that Dave, that PC Dave Wilson. I mean, him and his partner, the policeman, and seeing this thing walking towards them, and they had to save their car. But imagine like going for a walk and seeing one of these things.
I would imagine there are people out there in the area that have. I mean, not so far away in Wantage, we've got a young girl who came home only a couple of years ago, goes into a back garden.
Oh, that's right, I read that story, yeah.
Katie, she lives along the chalk stream there. And she said she knew it was there before she put eyes on it.
They give off a vibe, I think. You know, you've got this, I think it's that fear factor that we've got that probably goes right back to primitive times, that protection. Because, you know, I just ran. I ran the fastest I'd ever run in my life back to Wood Farm. I've never been so relieved to basically get onto the main road and where there's houses. And I thought, well, who do I tell? You know, I've got no real evidence. I can't tell the police or anything. I told my best mate, and I told my wife at the time, and a few friends. And, you know, and then I think we had the story. The story came out on Ben Emily Jones's site, and people saying, oh, perhaps it was a cat, perhaps it was this. And it's like, don't be so stupid, you know, this thing was crunching, like it sounded like quite a heavy human. Thing was, there's loads of young. I mean, it's quite a troublesome estate, the Wood Farm estate. There's a lot of youth hanging around there. But I lived there for one. I knew most of the youngsters on there. So at first I thought perhaps somebody's going to try and mug me, perhaps someone's following me. But I knew everyone on that estate, and I didn't have anything to rob anyway. They probably wouldn't have known that. But I was just. But there's no way a human being could follow me, especially when I was jogging, and keep up with me and then get ahead of me through such thick undergrowth without falling over, or at least, you know, grunting or making a sound, or, you know, falling over or something.
And the fact that you caught it out in its steps, it was...
It's only really pissed off, because the last time I did this big jump in the air to give me like a second or so I could hear if it was running. And then I heard this couple more footsteps, and it was really annoyed that I'd sussed out that it was there. That's how I took it.
Yeah, because its cover was up, which definitely means it was stalked.
So I had nothing to relate it to. I mean, I didn't think it was a dog, because it sounded humanoid, and I never heard of Dogman in those days. I never heard of any of this stuff. You know, didn't start Quest Invisibles till quite, you know, many years later. So I wasn't even aware of invisible things.
Same. I mean, when I spoke to you, the first time I spoke to you, I was all, you know, Bigfoot, Bigfoot, Bigfoot. And I kept hearing from people who were having these kind of experiences, and many of them seeing dog-like creatures, and it changed my research, because I thought, well, if I've seen what I've seen, then they've seen it, you know. My story is impossible. Well, theirs is too, but I get it. They have the same fear that you and I have, even though we've had different experiences. The fear is the same. It's confusing. You don't know. Like you say, you can't really talk to people about it. You can't go to the police. You can't phone the doctor. You just got to deal with it yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, I started my work with Quest Invisible in 2010. I started filming things in the sky. You know, obviously, there's a lot of stuff on my website, but I also had experiences in my garden. We've got like a woodland area, it's about an acre in my garden, and it's my sister's garden. But there's about a third of an acre of woodland going through it, which has got an old riverbank. But one night I was sitting there looking around with my camera, and it was in the autumn. There's loads of leaves on the floor, and I suddenly heard something running towards me. And it was crunching through the leaves, and it triggered the lights on the side of the house, the burglar type lights that you have on the side of the house, the intruder lights. They got triggered, and yet I saw nothing. And this thing was running to me, and just as it just about reached me, the sound faded away, and there's nothing there.
Right.
And that started me thinking. I've had that experience twice. One time it triggered the lights on the house, another time it didn't. But I felt quite that fear again with that, because I couldn't see anything, and it was definitely running towards me. And I tried taking a photograph and didn't catch anything.
It all seems connected, doesn't it? Like you say, that if you count the Lye Valley with the stuff at home, that's 3 incidents.
Yeah, and I think you can attract this stuff to you. I've had to take a bit of a break from Quest for Invisibles because, I was filming stuff in the sky, which is great, but then I filmed that stuff at my cat's grave site. After my cat Roy died, I filmed this snake-like entity coming. I asked him for a sign he was still there, and I was taking photographs in the infrared in pitch dark, like 15-second exposures. And I put a bunch of flowers on his grave, and all of a sudden I got like a plasmatic sort of thing that looked like flowers. I said, "How were the flowers on the grave? I hope you like flowers." And all of a sudden a burst of energy came out, 2 bursts of energy from his grave, which was invisible to me, but was picked up on the infrared camera. It looked like 2 bunches of flowers. And then the next was a snake-like object with a bill and eyes and scales. Ooh. And then things seemed to go mad. It was after that things started happening. Lights started flickering, which is still going on now. Footsteps up the stairs, and the doorbell ringing at 3 o'clock in the morning, even though no one can get into our premises. And because I live above a flat above my sister's garage, the doorbell we've got it so it rings in her house and mine, and she was hearing it ringing at 3 in the morning, and I was. And she was hearing me calling her apparently, and I was hearing her calling me. And obviously she wasn't calling me, and I wasn't calling her at that time. And the more I explored into this thing, the more weird things start happening. So I've had to kind of hold back at the moment because it can get very overwhelming. Yeah. And I've done it for 15 years now. I started Quest for Invisibles in 2010. I'm not doing a lot at the moment because it's just full on. And I use a Geiger counter to detect things and get like really high hits on the Geiger counter. I know they're there once I get the hit, and I'll take photographs in the invisible even though I don't see anything. And that's how I capture a lot of stuff at ground level and in the skies as well. I would like to say that from 15 years, in fact, you can bring them in by thinking about them and stuff. I think a lot of the UFO thing, I think the paranormal thing and the UFO thing are intertwined. Yeah. I'm starting becoming very convinced of that. And things can travel as orbs and come out from orbs. And there's a lot more to it than just UFOs coming from other planets.
Ellis Taylor got in touch with me. And he told me that he'd taken a report in Wheatley, which isn't that far from where you were. And the person, it was his brother actually, who saw it, and he said it resembled a bear. And we definitely don't have anything in the UK that resembles a bear, No. Yeah, and they're from the countryside, so, they're not going to mix up a deer or, a boar or something like that with a creature.
Yeah. Well, basically, when I first released my book was published by the Book Tree in America. Basically, it's Ellis that Ellis got in. Well, I got in touch with Ellis because I noticed that he was promoting a lot of my work, and we became sort of pretty good friends. And he started promoting my work a lot more. And then he comes over and visits me now and then. And he's a good friend of Ben Emmeline Jones, who lives in Oxford. And I believe Ellis used to live in Oxford himself. But he's had a lot of experience with Ellis. He
has. And he said to me, Debbie, you'll be under a psychic attack. You can't do this 24/7. You think about them, the more you put it into the universe, you're going to have more experiences and activity will up. And he was right. You could write that in blood.
No, that's dead right with me. I was so kind of obsessed. I think that's from obsessive, some kind of obsessive thing. I either do something or I don't, but when I do something, I do it obsessively. And for 15 years, up to sort of about a year ago, everything I lived and breathed Quest for the Invisibles. I always had a Geiger counter, infrared cameras on me. No matter where I went, I was doing it and I was capturing things. And then things started happening at home, things were moving, I was hearing voices, and it was even infiltrating my dreams. And it just got to the point where I really thought, I've got to take a break from this. I've got to live in the real world, the real physical world. And I find that the more and more I keep going out with the camera, it's almost like inviting these things to appear for me and come into this reality, and they will. Yeah, they will. They will very much so show themselves. I'm working with quite a few people who are having just an onslaught of activity. That's the best way I could put it, an absolute onslaught of activity. And that's the best advice we can give them, isn't it? When it's like that, you need to back away. Because you can't escape from it. If your every thought you're having is to do with stuff like that, then, these things are only too pleased to oblige, believe me. And some people may sort of listen to this and think, oh, what a load of rubbish, But it's not rubbish. Some people say, oh, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that. And I said to them, it doesn't matter what you believe, this stuff is real. And if you start willing it to happen or start looking into it, it will come. Yeah. And then you'll be very, very sorry.
We've had similar journeys. And it takes you down a rabbit hole, doesn't it?
It does, it very much does, yeah.
And just dealing with the original event is enough sometimes. You'll hear that growl. I know you do. You think about it, don't you, on a daily basis, even though you try not to.
I lay there in bed and I go over the whole thing in my mind, and it's too much. Even now, I can picture that growl and it just sent shivers through me because I just don't know what it was. But I think I kind of know what it was.
Yeah. I mean, I would say now. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I'd say now. I think it was a Dogman creature. I don't.
Yeah,
think
I do as well. No, I'm convinced of that.
Yeah.
Once I started looking into the Dogman thing, and I heard similar stories, I started thinking that's what it was. It did sound canine, and I've got dogs. I've had dogs for a while, and I've heard them growl, and they do like a softer version of that, but it's still the same type of growl. It's a bit. I mean, I see that Dave Wilson, the PC who had the Dogman experience. I mean, he wanted to put it to bed and forget about it. I mean, I know he's not up for talking, but I would love to. I'd love to talk about it with him. I'd love to see where it happened, but obviously, he's not interested in all that, and that's fair enough. I respect that. Just interested in just chatting because it probably made me feel better about what I saw, in a sense, knowing that somebody else saw something, that relates to what I saw. Although my thing, I don't know whether it was invisible completely or whether it was hiding from me.
Something shadowed you down those embankments and growled at you when you worked out it was there. In a nutshell.
Yeah, absurd because either side of that embankment is a housing estate, and I'm so familiar with that area. It just seems absurd that something like that would be down there, but which makes me sense that it was a kind of. I think these things can come through portals or they can go invisible. There's something very strange about them. I think they're supernatural creatures or some part of supernatural.
Yeah, I
part of them,
Dawn and dusk as well in dim light. It was dusk for you, wasn't it, when you were down there?
Yeah, it was just getting dark, and obviously the more I went down, there's a bit where the sort of banks come in a bit more, and it got quite dark because it had been quite a bit of a stormy day, and the sunlight was still out in Cowley, but that was kind of way down the other side, down right past the golf course, which I could have seen the light on if I was on the golf course going down to Cowley, but it was all blocked from where I was. It just got dark, and I very nearly didn't go through there because I was starting to get unnerved before I even started out, let alone because I've seen orbs down there, and my wife, just after I got married, my wife and I went down there, and at the time, I'm not with them now, and we saw an orb about the size of a tennis ball, just floating about 4 or 5 foot above the stream. It just went straight past us, as a matter of fact, and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
And that always struck me as a bit odd, and we've seen a couple of other weird things and heard weird sounds down there.
So it could be something to do with the land then, and you tuned into it, and it's tuned into you.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. But you just can't put over to people that fear. It's very hard to explain to someone. I just wish I was saying to my sister, I wish you could come inside my body and just experience that fear that I had and understand how scary it was,
Yeah, I once said to my husband, I wish they could invent something like a helmet or something they could put on my head and they could be in that experience with me that day.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, some part of me wants to go back down there and explore it a bit more, but I'm just scared that if I go down there, I'm going to attract it again and I'm going to regret it, And now, I mean, this was many years ago. It was nearly 30 years ago when I had that experience. I mean, 1996. I mean, I can't really put it to bed because I keep thinking about it, and especially when I'm talking, every time I talk about it with someone like yourself, it brings it up again,
I'm really grateful that Nik trusted his gut that day and turned round, ran out of there and got on the bus and went home, because I'm not sure he would have made it home otherwise. This creature was not showing itself to him. It wasn't presenting itself as we see in some cases. It was doing the absolute opposite, in fact. Now, any good hunter will tell you the best place to be to hunt is up above your prey. You can see them coming. You know what direction they're coming from. And you've also worked out the choke point and a good area to ambush your prey. Now that works whether you are a mountain lion or a caveman or a man with a rifle. To stalk your prey silently is a skill that has to be honed. It doesn't just come naturally. As humans bundle through the woods and you can hear twigs snapping and branches cracking and things rustling as we move on through there. Nik could hear its footsteps and it kept up with him at every step. Now what will happen in a hunting situation, you allow your prey to come in and then you get out in front of them. And what worries me is, was it on its own that day? Because if there'd have been two of them, it could have cut Nik off when he turned round to run away. So thankfully this thing was on its own. He also mentioned that it sounded annoyed or angry that he caught it out when he did the jump and he heard the footsteps. It gave away its position up there on the hill, concealed within the bushes. The game was up. So it spent how long there waiting on somebody coming along? Does it still do that? Is it still alive 15 years later? It isn't that far away to Wantage, where Katie saw a wolf man creature in her garden. It isn't far away at all from where the two police officers mentioned by me and Nick when we were chatting also saw what they described as a werewolf or a dogman that crossed in front of the car. And these areas are connected, very easy to get in between. There are early reports of a bear-like creature, and that always interests me. That usually means something thick and muscular, down on all fours, moving through an area. And for all there are some homes out there, there is a distinct green corridor that you can move through, like most of the UK. And once you're out onto that green belt land, you can go anywhere you want to go. And you will come across more reports of werewolf or dog-like creatures in the area. Unfortunately, reports like Nick's are becoming ever more prevalent. More and more people are reporting experiences within our woodlands, on the greenbelt land, or close to their homes, or even sometimes at their home. Nick mentioned running figures that he couldn't see. David in Wigan mentioned running figures that his daughter couldn't see that were pounding on the house. I've heard this so often over the years, and it's even got a name now. It's called a hitchhiker effect. Steve Hevican, the guy from Cannock Chase, had a very similar experience after discovering some really strange tree breaks in the Cannock Chase area. Things started to happen at his home and at his daughter's home when he visited there. And then other members of his family started to have activity. And that culminated with seeing two dog-like creatures quite close to the chase. Steve's left me a number of voicemail messages, so I'll be able to put those together in an interview for you so you can hear him speak about his experience in the same way that David and Nick have done. And I hope I can bring you more witness testimony as the months go on. Times have changed now in the UK. People are accepting of these experiences, and they love to hear the witness stories, no matter how frightening. And it helps the witnesses because their terrifying ordeal is then shared and understood, and it helps them move forward with it. Nick had the same questions now as he had when it happened, and it's the same for all of us. You still think about it on a daily basis. It's there at night when you go to sleep. You wonder all of the time if you made it up in your head or did it really happen, and you know it did. But you're hoping for something that'll explain it away, and unfortunately that never happens. I've added a link to Nick's website in the description below. And if you want to chat with him, just get in touch with me and I will put you in touch with Nick. And I'll also be able to share his Facebook with you if you're on Facebook and you don't mind having a chat with him. Because he's really interested in hearing from other people who've had experiences like his own, as we all are. So I've hoped you enjoyed today's video, and I will definitely bring you more of our exciting BBR case files. And I'll be back on the same day and the same time next week. Good night, everyone.